everyone, and welcome to Conquer Your Chaos, Simple Strategies for a Healthy Living. My name is Jennifer Shlomovich, and I'm a certified coach. And today my special guest is Carrie Doubts, who's a transformational coach, helping others rebuild their lives after loss. And today our topic is going to be dealing with grief during the holidays. Carrie, welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. It's so great to be with you and your listeners, and thank you for the invitation. I look forward to our conversation.
Me too. So before we get started, can you share a little bit about yourself and how you help others?
Sure, sure. Well, I'm a transformational life coach, meaning I work with clients who are experiencing big life transitions. So anything in the area of relationships, career, health. I work with a lot of people going through divorce and a lot of people going through bereavement. So I really work with them to assist them in navigating through the pain and the uncertainty that loss brings forward so they can really discover new purpose and new meaning in life. You know, grief and loss, it turns your life upside down. And sometimes you start asking these questions: who am I? And
Mm-hmm.
what do I want? So it's really diving into those big life questions. And I really help people create the life that they want to live on the other side of their grief. So yeah, I created my business, which is Life's Next Chapter Coaching, in 2013, while I was completing my coach training. And my Rebuilding Your Life After Loss program, it just kind of uh, it was one of those experiences where it just kind of downloaded itself to
Mm-hmm.
me. It was really in choosing to work with people going through grief and loss, it really felt like a calling. And so during that early time, it was just something that was kind of given to me to do, and I answered the call by saying yes. And so, I do the work with individuals. I love working with groups. I do workshops. I do lead classes and things like that. I have some online courses that I've created. So, it's that work is really my passion and something I really love doing.
That's great, and that's really important work to do as someone who's gone through both grief, losing a parent, and also divorce. You go through a whole bunch of upheaval of emotions, and you go through grieving, going through both of those things because you're grieving loss of the loved one, and you're grieving loss of what could have been, what you did
Yes.
have with the divorce. So those are a lot of heavy things to deal with. And I know for myself, I needed to get help through both therapy and coaching that helped me.
Mhm.
And coaching and therapy are different, and they're both very important things to do, but I feel like coaching then takes you to that next step of the future planning. Like the therapy really helps you do the work on the past stuff, but then coaching really helps you discover who you are and where you want to go and create that future plan.
Absolutely. We help people get clear on what that plan is, or what it is that they want. A big loss like that, like I said, it throws you into these
Mm-hmm.
deep questions of who am I now that I'm not a wife or a mother or a husband or a father, depending on what's been lost. Who am I, and what do I want? And so coaching really is not only the vehicle for helping you get clear on what you want, but it accelerates your movement from where you are, which is in a lot of pain and suffering, to
Mm-hmm.
where you want to be. So it really is the vehicle that gets you there.
Absolutely. I love that analogy. Yeah, coaching definitely is that vehicle that takes that. And so what inspired you to get into this line of work?
Well, I actually trained to be a therapist. So I
Oh,
went to
wow.
school, I did all the classwork, got into my internship, and I just ultimately decided this was not the path for me. I then chose to get coach training. I got certified as a coach, But my training to become a therapist was really a key part of my growth and my learning, because it gave me a capacity for empathy. And I learned also not to take on others, people's feelings
Hmm.
and their energy by going into sympathy or anything like that. People ask me, how can you do this? Or don't you get like pulled down by everybody? It's like, no, no, no. It's like, I'm here to companion with someone who's going through this, but I want to be respectful. This is their grief, their
Right.
process, and I'm here to hold them in a loving container, a loving space, a safe, a psychologically safe place to do the work. So anyway, it gave me the ability also to sit with people while they're experiencing these strong emotions of grief. So, and going through a painful divorce of my own really motivated me to do my own healing work. So, all of that led me to, like I said, accept the calling to specialize in grief and transition coaching. And so I got my coach certification, and I also got certified as a grief counselor. And honestly, it was the loss of my mother, who died on my birthday, which is the
Ooh.
day after Christmas.
Oh,
So talk about,
that's
we're going to
tough.
talk about, yeah, what happens when you're dealing with loss at the holidays. It's really a big challenge.
Yeah, I lost my mom 6 days before Mother's Day, and that
Oh yeah. Oh
tarnished
my
Mother's
gosh.
Day
Oh yeah.
for me for a while. And even though I have my own son, and I try to like shift the focus on, okay, I'm a mom, so I'm going to celebrate Mother's Day being a mom.
Mm,
I think it took me about 10 years to really get to a point where it didn't hurt as bad. And I think
mm,
for me, what helped with that was on the 10th anniversary. She passed away in 2007.
mm,
So on the 10th anniversary of that, I grew up in Syracuse, New York. And so I'm in New York City. So I'm like 5 hours away now from where she's buried. And so I planned this trip to my hometown with my
mm,
son for Mother's Day weekend. And we visited her grave. And I felt what was interesting was after we left and we're driving on the highway, this heart-shaped balloon, they were doing, it's right by Syracuse University. So that
mhm.
like there's college graduations happening at the time. But right when we're driving down the highway, this heart shaped balloon blew from the university area and hit my windshield and like floated
Ah.
up. And I felt for me, I was like, wow. And for me, like that 10th anniversary visit for me kind of helped some kind of healing for myself
Yeah,
with
yeah.
that milestone. And the
I
heart shaped balloon was nice.
It was like a little message from mom. I
Yeah.
love you.
Yeah.
Well, what you're talking about is so powerful because you had the sense, had the perhaps listening to an interior message of I need to complete a ritual of
Yeah.
completion for myself, and how beautiful that you could have your son with you to have the generations present.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been something that's been a big help, I think, as well. Like her on her birthday, my mom loves strawberry milkshakes. So on her birthday, we have milkshakes. Now I'm vegan, so I make a vegan version of them. But but my son knows when it's my mom's birthday that's we honor her by having strawberry milkshakes. And so I find that for me, what's helped me with my grief is finding little ways of creating traditions. And with COVID-19 and just all the loss people have experienced in 2020, and now we're entering into a holiday season that's unlike any other holiday season any of us
Yeah.
have experienced. What are some tips that you could share with helping people dealing with grief right now during this time?
Yeah, you're absolutely so right. I mean, the way that we are, celebrating the holidays is going to be very different anyway.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of our situation. And whether your loved one died recently or whether they died a long time ago, the holidays do bring up powerful memories that can trigger your grief. And I think people get surprised by that. You know, what I learned in my own personal experience is, if the person that I love died on or near the holiday, like you said, it kind of tarnishes the holiday for you because the two events get linked up, you
Mhm.
know? And this can make the holidays even more painful, especially if you have unresolved feelings about the lost relationship. And that was certainly the case for me. My mom died suddenly
Mhm.
on my birthday,
Mm.
and right the day after Christmas. So, similar to what you were talking about, when Christmas starts to roll around and my birthday and all of that, I'm prepared for it. And I think that that's one of my messages. Be prepared
Mhm.
to, you'll have, it's possible, it's probable that you may experience a painful grief trigger, like a surge of grief. It's very common during the holidays because we have so many associations with family, with loved ones, with spending this special time together. So just kind of, brace yourself for it, and if it doesn't happen, wonderful, but
Mhm.
just expect that you may not feel as excited about the holidays as everyone else around you, right? And the next tip is, like, talk about your feelings, either with understanding friends or other family members, a professional coach or a therapist. It's so important to talk about what you're experiencing rather than trying to, I hear so many people saying, oh, I don't want to ruin everybody's time, so I'll just keep it to myself.
Mhm.
So it's so important to talk about it because, look, everybody kind of know, if they know you at all, they know you're dealing with this, right? And so accept as many or as few invitations as you really feel ready for. And with COVID, who knows? There may not
Yeah.
be the level of get-togethers and things like that. So um, I know many people are creating new ways to get together on Zoom, on Skype, having these little family calls where we all get together and hang out for a bit. So, only accept what feels joyful and good for you. If it feels like an
Mhm.
obligation or a burden, or you just really, don't want to, I really encourage you to decline it, decline the invitation, and people will understand. Another thing, and you said this with the strawberry milkshakes,
Mhm.
incorporate your loved one into the holidays.
Mhm.
Their physical presence may be gone, but the relationship that you have with them is still intact. It's in your heart, it's inside of you. And so tell your favorite stories about them. My
Mhm.
brother and I do that on her birthday. We always call and talk to each other, and we'll tell our favorite stories about our mom. And sometimes they're funny, sometimes
Mhm.
they don't show her in the most attractive light, but it's a lot of times it's just, sharing our experience of her and being able to talk about her. It's so comforting, and I I like to, like, light a candle for my mom on
Mhm.
Christmas, every Christmas. Those candles that you get, like, they're in a glass container like
Yeah.
this, so they're safe, right?
Mhm.
And I light the candle on Christmas morning,
Mhm.
and I have a photo of her, and I have some flowers next to it, and I leave the candle burning until it burns out. And it burns through Christmas and my birthday, and maybe even a little bit into the next day. And it's just like I leave it in a place where I can see it. So in a way, it for me, it invokes her presence.
Mhm.
Like, I think about her, and I think about her in I don't think a positive way is the right way, but in just a loving way.
Mhm.
It's just like, oh, hi, mom. I'm thinking about you. Make some of the favorite, foods that she used to teach me how to make and things like that. So I encourage everybody listening to this, incorporate that person into your life in some way. Don't pretend like, it doesn't matter that they're gone or that you've forgotten, that kind of thing. Some other things, some people really like to make a donation
Mm.
to a cause, in the person's name, like a cause that maybe was important to them. You know, I make a donation to the Cancer Society because
Nice.
she was a cancer survivor for many, many years, and
Mhm.
just a huge respect for the amount of work that goes into cancer research and the care of cancer patients. So that can make you feel like it's just something that's honoring their memory, right? Um, Also, kind of back to the holiday things, I really encourage people to simplify your holiday traditions or create new ones, especially with COVID. This
Mhm.
this may be one of the things that we're all going to be looking at doing. But only do those traditions that have meaning for you. Certainly don't do a lot of the stress related things of expecting yourself to make the holidays that meet your standards, like getting
Right.
out all those hundreds of Christmas cards on time and getting the perfect gifts and all that kind of stuff. Really, your energy is not going to be ready for something really stressful like that, especially if it's been a recent loss. And certainly ask for help. Ask for help from people. Like if you are needing some help with decorating or putting up lights or taking down lights, um, I know a lot of people who have lost the person who used to do that for them. That they
Mhm.
think, oh well, I can't do it anymore. So, and take really good care of yourself. Grieving is exhausting. It is. And, add to that the holiday stress. Just give yourself permission to go to bed early, to take plenty of naps, to, just really take good care of yourself. So those are just kind of a few tips I have. I wonder if you have some, Jennifer.
So that's all great stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of that I've incorporated over the years and then I have added to it. So I'm going to circle back to what you were saying in the beginning about sharing your feelings with other people. What's really helped me has been also journaling because
Mhm.
sometimes you may not have someone you're either a comfortable talking with, or sometimes you just have so much junk in your mind that you just need to like spew it out. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night at 3:30 in the morning and I need to just get something out. And journaling has been very helpful in just me dealing with divorce, grief, and just everything in my life. And it's allowed me to develop that self connection with myself. And so that's another tip I'd like to add in with that sharing piece is journaling because it allows you to talk to yourself.
Yes. Well, and you said something so smart where you're building a relationship with yourself.
Yes.
You're telling yourself, I'm here for myself. I'm going to take the time to give myself the space to make
Mm-hmm.
all my feelings okay. Because guess what? It's not just sadness that people feel, it's anger, resentment, guilt. There's all kinds, shame,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of, and sometimes relief. It's just like sometimes there's things that we don't maybe feel comfortable talking with other people about because we just haven't resolved it yet inside of us. And
Yeah.
so, absolutely, journaling is such a great way to support yourself. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to then also bring up what you're saying about those negative emotions, and you had
Hmm.
mentioned it earlier too, is sometimes we have unresolved things with a parent or loved one,
Yeah.
someone we're close with, and we lose them suddenly, especially if there's no warning. And
Mm-hmm.
I also lost my mom with no warning. And, I saw her the night before. The next day, she had a heart attack. She was unconscious for a few days and then had passed away. And it was just, there was no, I used to have a dream, a reoccurring dream for that first year of like going back in time to that, like that day before I saw her last and trying to like tell her to run to the doctor and, and you, and so there was that dealing with that, but with that sudden loss, I didn't have, there was a lot of unprocessed things with my mom too, that, we had our good times and then there was the other stuff. And
Yep.
we'll call it the other stuff.
The other
And
stuff,
the
yes.
other stuff. And I, for a while, suppressed it. I just
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to deal with it. And then I ended up getting a new job like not long after that had happened. And I was going through a move to another city and all these other
Ah,
things. So they
yeah.
distracted me for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then when my life settled down again, all of a sudden I had to like look at this. And I went 2 years later, I started going to a therapist to deal with a lot of different things. And the first thing my therapist wanted me to do was write a letter to my mom as if I was just talking to her, as if she was still alive, and just unpack everything, just let it all flow out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to read it out loud to my therapist, which was and it was a very challenging, painful assignment. But it created a huge opening for me to start doing that healing work and the
Yeah.
things that I didn't want to admit or the things I didn't want to acknowledge. And you do feel guilt because it's like, oh, this person's dead. I shouldn't be thinking these things or feeling these
Mm-hmm.
things.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to feel our feelings
Yeah.
and give ourselves that space and that permission to have those feelings. So, yeah, just getting back to what you're saying before, yeah, it's finding that space to share all that stuff, and the journaling allows us to do that. And then also what's great about working with a coach or a therapist or doing both, because you can do both
Mm-hmm.
together,
Yeah.
um, it's helpful having a neutral person to unpack
Yes.
those things, who like, because you're family members and friends, they might have judgments or say things that they mean to be helpful but aren't necessarily helpful.
Yeah.
And so it helps having a coach
Mm-hmm.
uh, or a therapist to dive into those areas and really do that healing work.
Absolutely. They'll ask the questions that other people in your life won't.
Yeah.
They will help you probe below the surface of, um, say for instance, talking about the nature of your attachment to the person. Was it a secure attachment? Was it
Mm-hmm.
an anxious attachment? Was it ambivalent? Was it avoidant? You know, um, because all of that will have a bearing on the grieving process. And so, a lot of times, what clients of mine talk about when they're
Mm-hmm.
dealing with somebody, the loss of somebody, especially a parent, where they have kind of an avoidant or an anxious, ambivalent attachment, it can be very painful. It can actually put the client into like a depressed mood for quite a long time
Mm-hmm.
because they find that now that the person's gone, the thoughts go to this sort of track of now I'm never going to get the love I never got from that parent.
Mm.
And it takes some time to really grapple with that and to explore the nature of the attachment and really start to attach back into yourself rather than trying to get that kind of love and nurturing and all of that you in the way that you wanted it, right, growing up. Where working with a coach, I work with people to attach that back to themselves where they're giving themselves the love, the nurturing, the
Mm-hmm.
care, the attention that they needed from the parent who wasn't always there for them. And not only that, working in a way to reframe the relationship, meaning to see it in a different frame. You know, they've been
Mhm.
seeing it a certain way all their life of my mother didn't do this and my dad never, and so it's like really taking a look at they loved you in the best way they knew how. They and that,
Yeah.
to really look at that, it may not have been the way you wanted, but you can now, with that relationship inside of you, you can start to tease that apart a little bit and allow them to give you what you wanted at the time when they were alive. So reframing the relationship, creating a new relationship with that person, because relationships, they live inside of us. It's that space in between your mom or your dad and you get to put into that space what it is you want and you need from them. So writing a letter like that, I often have clients write a letter, ask them for what you want from them,
Mhm.
you know um, make the apologies that you feel you need to make, just all of that. The Grief Recovery Institute, that's one of the resources that I was going to talk to you about. They talk about a process of writing that letter, and they set it up in a very specific way. And then,
Mhm.
yes, you read your letter to another person, a neutral person, and in that being witnessed in your feelings and your deepest thoughts about the whole thing, it's extremely healing. It's just incredibly healing. Easy? No. Worth it? Yes.
Yeah, and that's, I think, another thing I want to emphasize is, yeah, it's a process.
Mhm,
Grieving is a process, and it's painful, and yeah, there's a part of you that's like, okay, I just want to feel better. I just want to get this pain over with, or I don't want to feel this anymore. And
mhm.
there's no timeline to
Mm,
grief.
that's true.
And I know people who've had loved ones well-meaningly, I guess, say, oh, you should be over this by now. And
Mhm.
there's no timeline
Yeah.
for these
Yeah.
things. It's unique for everybody. Everyone has their own unique grieving process.
Yeah. That is so important. And, here's some things to not do while you're grieving. Isolate yourself and tell yourself, "Oh, nobody wants to hear about this." You know, um, it's hard enough that you've gone through loss, and now, if you're further self-isolating, it's very painful. And, don't be afraid to cry when you need to. It's so important to, tears are our way of releasing the pain that's on the inside and bringing
Hmm.
it to the outside. It's just so important to do that. And, resist the urge to tell people you're fine when you're not. you
Hmm.
know it's like that. Oh, I don't even want to go there, so I'll just tell people I'm fine.
Right.
It's really okay to just say, thank you for asking. I'm having a tough day, but I'll be better tomorrow, perhaps. You know, it's just like being a little honest with yourself. People could take it, you
Yeah.
know?
I
Yeah.
what something I say to people sometimes is, I'm working through it right now. Like, that's another way
Right.
where you're not saying I'm fine and you're ignoring yourself, but
Yes.
you're letting them know that you're on it and you're working on
Hmm.
it.
Right. Because really, the first step to working with emotions is to accept them. Accept, acknowledge there's a lot here. It's perfectly understandable that you feel this way.
Hmm.
Just to be validated in that is so important.
Absolutely. Being validated is very, very powerful. And just, again, having someone just listen to you
Mhm,
without trying to fix
mhm,
things. And I think, like, again, that's where family or friend, people who are close to you in your life, they mean well, and they're
mhm,
trying to, like, fix it for you or try to give you unsolicited advice.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
that's not really what you want in that moment.
it's not helpful. I mean, I do a lot of presentations and talking with other people about how to support people who are grieving.
Mm,
And there's a lot of things that we do just because we're uncomfortable with strong emotions. So, somebody starts crying in our midst, we go like this, here, stop. So I tell people, if somebody starts crying and you're right there, just you don't even have to do anything. You just say, it's okay, just let that come out. And they'll ask for a tissue when they're done.
Yeah.
When we give somebody a tissue when they start crying, really what we're telling them is stop.
Right. And I think too, also we might feel uncomfortable, someone might feel uncomfortable, and it's like you feel like you need to do something in that
Exactly.
moment. And something that I say to clients who get emotional in a session is, take your time. I'm here for you whenever you feel ready to talk. And I just let them know that they don't have to do anything until they're ready, and that I'm just
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And not only that, sometimes if somebody's really sobbing and really into it, I encourage them to talk through it. You
Mhm.
know, it's like use your words, put words to your feelings. It's really helpful for you to name what it is you're feeling, because sometimes people can get into what we call emotional flooding, and they're just
Mhm.
recycling the energy and they can't stop crying. So what I do is help people sort of, yes, you're having the feeling. It's really important. Where do you feel it in your body? Just pay attention. Where is it? Where are you feeling it? Oh, it's right in here. Okay, so bring it out of your body and float it in front of you. Let's take a look at it.
Mm.
And so we're helping people get a little bit of a distance from the emotion so they can take a look at it and get into conversation with it, actually, is what I have people do. Because, our feelings, we don't want to get rid of them. We want to
Right.
express them. They have a message for us. They have a message. They have information for us. And sometimes it's just, I love deeply. I love this person deeply, you know? And so there's lots of ways of working with the emotions that are honoring of the person. It's like we want to give people the dignity of their process and not, like you said, try to fix it or shut it down or rationalize it or tell people all the reasons why they shouldn't feel that way. Not helpful. It's not helpful. But in people just really accepting their own emotions and being okay with
Mhm.
not being okay, it's such a powerful gift that you give yourself.
I like that. And yeah, sometimes I've when I used to put pressure on myself to have to feel a certain way or be a certain way,
Hmm.
and being able to acknowledge that, what, I'm not in a good mood today, or I'm feeling this right now.
Yeah.
That's okay. And then it allows me to kind of separate it, and then, okay, well, what do I need to focus on today? And I can still focus on this and still feel this. So how can I do both? And then I kind of have that like self-talk dialogue with myself.
Wow. I
on that.
mean, that is such an important thing you're saying, because people don't really know this, but we are multidimensional. We
Mhm.
can, people say, oh, you can't feel two feelings at once. Well, we do have the ability, like I said, when we are able to, in a way, take the emotion and put it in front of us, we become the observer of
Right.
ourselves while we have the emotion. And so it is a helpful way to understand that, yes, I'm grieving, I'm sad, but I'm not a sad person.
Right.
So we don't over identify with the emotion. I hear people say, oh, I'm depressed. And, I say, well, is this a clinical um, diagnosis that you've received? No, it's just the way I feel. It's like, okay, well, let's take some thought here. Let's slow this down and help you separate. You're a wonderful human being who's having an experience of
Mhm.
depression. So
That's
we
a
set,
powerful way to reframe it.
yeah, because if people identify themselves as that, it's stuck to them. They start to
Right.
walk around as, that's my identity. I'm
Right.
broken, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I'll never, and then they start telling themselves a story about it. So,
Right. Yeah, and when we tell our whatever story we tell ourselves is what puts us in various types of situations.
yeah.
And when we start changing those stories, we start changing our experiences.
Yeah, yeah. If we can, take a look at the perceptual filter that we're looking at ourselves and the world through, if it's one of depression, then everything looks to be that way, including ourselves. So we just help people separate. I'm a
Hmm.
great, wonderful, loving human being who's going through an experience of grief. I am not my grief.
Yeah, no, that's really powerful. It's like going into a middle place and being able to look at things separate from who you are.
Yeah.
One of the analogy that I like to use with my clients a lot is our minds, especially our subconscious, is it's like a room, like an attic or a basement that's like filled with boxes of stuff, and you kind of know what's in there, but you don't remember what's in there until you start unpacking it. And
Hmm.
in the coaching sessions or whatever work that we do in between the sessions that they work on, that's where they get to unpack those boxes. And like I know from various moves I've done, it's like I always have these boxes that follow me around that I kind of know what's in there. And then when you open it up, you're like, oh, and then you can make this conscious decision what you want to do with those contents. And
Right.
then do I want to keep this? Do I want to donate it or throw it out? And then you clear out this room, whether it's an attic or a basement, and now you can make it a family room, an office. And it's the same thing with our minds. When we unpack all these boxes of just stuff, our feelings, experiences, beliefs, the stories we tell ourselves, when we unpack it and we actually look at what's in there and separate it from us a little bit, then we can start making conscious decisions. Well, what do I want to do with that?
Hmm.
Is that how I want to be? Is that how I want to identify myself?
Yeah,
Okay. And then we can start making conscious decisions of what kind of actions we want to take.
that's a really good way to put it. See, grief and loss, it does have an inherent gift in it if we're willing to see it, if we're when we're ready to see it, when we get enough kind of distance, from it, and that it is a life transforming um, opportunity. I've had people I've worked with who their grief experience, their loss of something that was incredibly important to them, it had the effect of breaking their heart open.
Hmm.
you know and when we have our hearts broken open, we're open. you
Yeah.
know and I've had people tell me, as painful as this has been, um, it taught me so much. It taught me how to be compassionate to others who are also going through loss. I'll never see life the same way as I did before. It's just like I see my life and the life of the people around me with so much more of an open heart.
Yeah, I can relate to that also. And just for me too, is focusing more on just creating more memories and taking a lot of pictures and printing those pictures and actually creating like photo albums instead of letting them sit dormant on a in the digital cloud space somewhere.
Yes. Yeah.
um and just, yeah, finding it's helped me find ways to just make memories of the small things and
Mhm.
appreciate those small things, because those are the big things. And it just, yeah, it just makes you see life in a very different way, and it's helped me support others through various grief and experiences as well through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's a lot of groups who have formed, of people who have gone through loss. I wish my mind would show me the names of them right now, but um, Soaring Spirits, I think, is one of the groups for widows and widowers.
Mm-hmm.
It's people who've gone through this who have created a life for themselves on the other side of this grief, and who that's typically that's the last step in my 9-step process for rebuilding your life after loss. It's service.
Mhm.
When we have gone through something like this, and we're feeling much more resilient and on the other side of it in many ways, what we typically want to do is turn around and help other people.
Mhm.
And so Soaring Spirits is one of those organizations. There's an organization that I can't remember the name of it right now, unfortunately, that helps people who have lost children, you
Oh,
know.
wow.
Yeah. Um, I know that there's so many great books and resources out there. I know a lot of people, when they first encounter a loss like this, they want to read everything that they can about it to understand what it is they're going through, and that's really helpful. And
Mhm.
so there's a book that I recommend. I was looking at it in preparation for our conversation about this is called A Decembered Grief. I think I have it right here. Yes, it's a Decembered Grief
Uh-huh.
by Harold Ivan Smith, and it's Living with Loss While Others Are Celebrating. It's a really good book.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
That
really
sounds very
helpful.
powerful.
Yeah.
I will I will definitely include that in the show notes.
Yeah, yeah. And Alan Wolfelt, Dr. Alan Wolfelt, Wolfelt, has written quite a few books on grief. He wrote Understanding Your Grief, and he wrote Healing Your Grieving Heart. These are really great books to help people. Um, when we're in pain, we want to we want to know the roadmap. We want to. It's
Yeah.
like, how do I get out of here? and
Yes,
and his books really provide a lot of great information. You can actually,
that's great.
work through them. I've written a lot of articles about grief and grieving, and they can be found on my website.
Great.
um, I have some online courses as well, self-study things. So there's lots of resources out there. So my main encouragement is, don't feel like you have to go through this alone.
Yeah, and there's various ways. And what's great about having the internet and all these different online spaces is if you don't, especially with COVID, it's really hard to have community right now in
Yes.
person with people. But even if you feel like you don't have someone you can call up and talk to, there are so many groups and outlets um, and the virtual community that people
Yeah.
can connect with. And
Yeah.
your website sounds like a great resource in itself. So I'll definitely include that in
Thank you.
the show
Yeah.
notes in the bottom. I really enjoyed our conversation. You've shared a lot of great, helpful tips. And I mean, there's so many things that one could talk about on this, and we're almost out of time. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with anyone watching before we wrap up?
I think just being compassionate and gentle with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There's no need to heap more suffering and judgment on yourself for not doing it right or anything like that while you're going through any kind of a loss. It's just, it's like, be really gentle and give yourself the time and space and the experiences that are comforting for you. Um, that's really going to be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we can be our own worst enemies. At least I know
Yes.
I've been my own worst enemy with things. So
Yeah.
being kind to yourself is definitely a very
Yeah.
important thing. And just what you said earlier, if you don't feel like up to doing something, then don't force yourself. Listen to yourself. Listen to what you need in that moment.
Exactly. Exactly. And I wanted to mention also the Grief Recovery Institute. It's a great
Okay.
website, and they run a holiday hotline. So for
Oh,
people who are, really struggling, just check them out.
okay.
There are resources for people who are in the middle of it.
That's great to know. I will also include that because that sounds like a very important resource to include.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time out to speak with us today, Carrie, and thank you for those of you who have tuned in and watched this. And all right, well, take care, and we'll have another topic in another week. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Jennifer. It's been great speaking with you, and all the best to all of you who are listening to this.
Thank you.